Hello everyone. I am getting this together. Boy, this was a close call. How are you guys doing? Okay, so I'm gonna make certain we are live everywhere. Hopefully, yeah, I think this is the right one. Let me make certain. Gonna double check on a few places. Make certain I'm up on Periscope. Yes, I am. Woohoo! I'm up on Periscope. Hello. Looks like I'm up on YouTube. So that's cool. Hello everyone. I'm up on Facebook. Yes, I'm up on Facebook. All right. Hopefully the Discord chat will work this time. So we are talking about octopi. Let me see. We're going to talk octopuses, octopi, octopodes, whatever octo you want to say or think about or however you want to call it. Oh wait, it's not human evolution. Crap. Stop streaming. Let me redo this. Hold on. I gotta go in. Okay, so if you're on Periscope or Twitch, it says human evolution. Let me go in and edit. It's supposed to be octopus. See, this is what happens when I rush. The science of octopus evolution. Save. Okay. All right, so I fixed it on YouTube. I cannot fix it on Periscope. It will not let me change the title. So it's Octopus Evolution. Sorry about that. This is what happens when it's just me. So it's just like, what? Now live. Let me post this here. Alrighty. Okay, so it looks like we got it now. World Cup and Octopus Evolution. Yes! So this was the voted for topic. I think I have everything down. So apologies to Periscope and Twitch. I did not change the titles on Restream. That is my fault entirely. So it's the evolution of the octopus. So this is, if you're new to this type of format, what I do is, and it's not June 30th, it's actually July 7th. So I will fix that later. Can you tell that I've just got a lot of pressure for this one? I learned a lot of stuff with digging down and putting this together for you guys for Octopus Evolution. And so this is what was voted on. It was very close between beer and subatomic particles and Octopus Evolution, but we got this down. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so this is the science of octopus evolution. There's so many cool aspects in regard to the evolution of the octopus, and I'm going to kind of tell you a little bit about that stuff today. And there's particular evolutionary traits that seem to be almost exclusive to the octopus. For my due diligence, I know. It's like I didn't go in and change my Restream title. So on Periscope and Twitch, this is human evolution apparently with the title. And I didn't change the date like I needed to. So I'll go back and do that right before the end of this broadcast. So hello everyone. So what I'm going to talk about today, what the heck are octopi, octopodes, octopuses, octopus, whatever plural form you choose. That's just a fun thing to say. We're going to talk about what their ancestors are, their evolutionary ancestors. There's a lot of controversy in regard to which particular species of cephalopods are closely linked to each other. They're still trying to work that out in the world of evolutionary biology. Also, how do they evolve? There are some specific evolutionary traits that seem to be unique just to the octopus. And then I'm going to show you some cool things that we have evidence of in regard to their individual intelligence. So there's about 289 species of octopus, and they fall into that group called Octopoda. They're called cephalopoda, and that literally translates to head feet in Greek. They're essentially mollusks who kind of lost their shells. They have so many similarities to their mollusks brethren, but the thing is they kind of lost their shells along the way. Now, what's really cool about the octopus is that the brain and body ratio is very similar to other intelligent animals. Yes, Brian says lacking good fossils of soft-bodied animals makes it harder. It does, though, because of the lack of calcification. That's another reason why we have a really hard time with like megalodon and sharks and that sort of thing, is that they're mostly cartilage. And so they don't have like that calcified bones like we see with other vertebrate type of animals, because they have those bones there. And also the shells in regards to other types of cephalopods, those are able to be calcified, and so those preserve a lot better, especially in the ocean. Okay, so other neat characteristics of octopus: they have a very complex nervous system, and they have what we would see about the same amount of neurons as dogs, and we're learning much more about dogs and their particular intelligence, and so we can kind of have some parallels there to a degree. I mean, I was taking a little bit of liberty there, but that should give you an idea that the octopus is inherently intelligent. 2/3 of its neurons are actually in its arms. Now, some people call those arms tentacles. That's incorrect. They are not tentacles. They're very much a part of the octopus, and the thing is if they lose an arm due to whatever reason, if they're captured, they can cut off their own arm, swim away, and grow a new one. That's one of the amazing things about the octopus. They have 3 hearts. 3 hearts. So that kind of keeps that blood pumping all over their bodies. They're extremely intelligent. There's actually evidence now that they use tools in order to build their shelters. They can take pictures of people. And, of course, they're master escape artists. So we're going to look at some of that evidence in a bit. They range in all kinds of sizes, anywhere from 2.5 centimeters in length to 5 meters long. That's about a little over, what is that, about 15 feet. So they can get much longer than, a little bit longer than that. Their range in weight is 1 gram to 50 kilograms. 50 kilograms is about 110 pounds. They're carnivores. Now for them, unfortunately, when they procreate, it's a death sentence. And another interesting thing about the octopus is that it has blue blood. It's blue blood. So let's dig into their history. The octopus, let me hop over, there we go. The very first cephalopod is seen in the fossil record about 500 million years ago in the Cambrian rock layers. Octopus is one over beer. I am offended. Well, the good news is, godless Iowan, I will take all of the topics that did not win and put them in the next particular poll. Usually after the second, or usually after the third try, whatever this, if the second place one has been second place for a while, I just automatically put that in as the next topic. Okay, so the Cambrian rock layers. If you're not familiar with the Cambrian period, there's something called the Cambrian explosion, where we see an increased amount of oxygen in the atmosphere, and there's just a huge explosion of diversity in the fossil record, where we see all kinds of different types of species of animals that kind of, boom, they're there. There's about 17,000 named species of the fossil cephalopods. They can undo jars, Brian, nuts and bolts. They would suggest a basic understanding of rotary motion. Yes. So there's 17,000 different named species of fossil cephalopods. They're extremely diverse in taxa, so much so that scientists have given 3 distinct fossil clades. Now I'm going to take you over to my big monitor and show you a cladogram. So let me pull that one up. Hello everyone. So here's a cladogram. Now this is kind of what we call a family tree, where we can kind of see how things are related to one another. So if you've never read one of these before, down here we have our, whoops, I jumped back. I didn't mean to. Down here at the very bottom, we have what we call the cephalopods. This is what we're talking about in regard to the cuttlefishes, the mollusks, all of those lovely things that we love so much. Now we have the nautiloids. We're going to talk a bit about those today, as well as the ammonoids. Now, these particular 3 extinct clades, these here, now I do want to preempt this by saying this information comes to us from the University of California Museum of Paleontology. All right, so a lot of this information that I'm pulling comes from that particular website, and I will put that on. It's at the end of my slideshow. Hello, everyone. They don't have tentacles, Brody. They have arms. That's where we get confusion there. Those are not tentacles. Those are actually arms. They have neurons. Like basically the neurons are your brain cells. So they actually have what we would consider brain cells going all the way through their arms. Isn't that cool? All right, so if you want to check out some really cool information, you can go to the University of California Museum of Paleontology, their website. A lot of this information that I'm presenting to you comes from there. Now, scientists are not certain where to place these 3 distinct clades. So we have Endoceratoida, Actinoceratoida, and Bactritoida. Gosh, man. And so this is our Latin is not fun. So this is our particular cladogram for A. Cladogram A, our figure A here. Now on this family tree, there's so much diversity in the fossils, these cephalopods, that scientists are still trying to work out where to put these 3 clades on the family tree of cephalopods. They're not certain. So these two clades were, or these actually 3 clades, the oh gosh, I'm going to have to say this again, Endoceratoida, Actinoceratoidea, and Bactritoidea. These clades were squid-like, but had straight external shells called orthocones. They are found primarily in Paleozoic oceans between the Ordovician and the Triassic periods. Now, the Ordovician period was about 488 million years ago, and the Triassic period was about 200 million years ago. And so the Paleozoic happens in between those 2 periods. Now, for some species of these particular clades, their shells reached a length of nearly 10 meters. So that's about 32 feet. So that's pretty freaking amazing. So here we're going to talk about do tentacles not have nerves then? The arms do have nerves, actually. Inaccurate to say tentacles with octopi, yes. You'd say biologists are being obtuse when they say that octopuses don't have tentacles. But I think tentacles have a little slightly different anatomy than actually arms. I can get back to you on that and dig down a bit more, Nelsie, and kind of direct you to some sources. Okay, so let's talk about the differences in between these particular things. Now, nautiloids are the earliest cephalopods that we see. Okay, so they appear in the late Cambrian. You remember I mentioned the Cambrian explosion towards the late Cambrian period. They started with straight shells, And then the coiled shells kind of appeared in the Ordovician. And that's what we see that's similar to ammonoids in the Devonian period. Now, nautiloids and ammonoids may look the same, but you can differentiate them by finding the siphuncle, and I'm probably saying that wrong, and analyze the shape of their sutures. And so we have these things called the siphuncle, these little orange cases here. So for the nautilus, the siphuncle runs through the center of the shell. But for the ammonite, it goes along the surface of the shell. So that's the main difference. So let's take a look a bit more about this. Alrighty. So how far are squid removed from the octopus in their evolutions? You know, I didn't actually get into that on here. I mostly looked at octopus in itself and not so much how it differentiated from its cousins. I suppose I can get back to you on that. All right, so we're looking at, excuse me, we're looking at fossils here of the siphuncle. The pic shows the siphuncle in ammonoids. That's the one here on the left. So we have the siphuncle that kind of runs along the outside on the ammonoid. Now in the nautilus, it goes through the center. So that's kind of the main difference between the two when we're trying to differentiate between ammonoids and the nautilus. Okay, Octopus Evolution. Here we go, next one. All right, now this is what's cool. Now we've mentioned before in regard to the fossil record, for the earliest cephalopods, it's really kind of poor due to the small sizes of the ancestors and the lack of calcification. When you're dealing with organisms that aren't inherently bony, they don't really have very good representation in the fossil record because there's nothing that actually calcifies in them. Now, the exception to this rule is the belemnites. The belemnites are really, really cool in that they have an interior shell. The siphuncle, what does the siphuncle do? It kind of divides the chambers up because you have internal chambers that have different, in all serious, they're fascinating. The siphuncle kind of helps divide up the chambers of the particular things inside of the ammonoids and the nautilus. So, so that's kind of what it does. I didn't get a whole lot into the anatomy regarding the nautilus and the ammonoids. I can actually pull up a picture for you. Oh, you saw an ammonoid fossil of opalized nature, unsure of specific mineral at a flea market, but $700 US is out of your pick range. Yes, one thing you might want to do is, if it's possible, kind of find out which parts where you live. Sometimes there's certain areas that have a high amount of fossils. For instance, not too far from me, there's an area where they have, there's a creek where there's a whole lot of fossils of certain species from a particular time. And if you're a member of the local museum, every year they have a fossil dig that you can go. It's part of your membership, and you can dig around. They give you the tools, and you can collect fossils and take them home with you. So it would, if you're interested in getting fossils, and especially the, around the ammonoid time period, you might want to check with your local museum and find out if there are any particular hotbeds for fossils to where you can go and kind of dig around a bit, or even talk to the local museum. Digging for fossils can be really cool, but there's a lot of different organizations that probably have programs where you can go on a fossil dig, and then that wouldn't cost you so much. Closest fossil bed to me is 368.36 miles. Hey man, sounds like a weekend trip. You can drive that. Okay, so back to the belemnites. They are the earliest cephalopod ancestor that we see that would be similar to our octopus. Now, since they're the exception to the rule in regard to their presence in the fossil record, because they didn't have an exterior shell, but they had an internal one. So the belemnites are the exception in this case. They're considered the earliest cephalopods in the clade Coiloidea. I probably say all of these wrong. I was never good at pronouncing any of the clades or the families or the genus because I did not take Latin, so I butcher these names. So Coiloidea, that's what we see with the octopus, squid, and cuttlefish. The belemnites had internal shells made of 3 different parts that we see in this pic, and this again comes from the University of California. And the largest amount of these species can be found in the Mesozoic marine sediments. So the 3 parts that made their particular internal shell was the prostracum, the phragmocone, and the rostrum or guard with a portion cut away to show the phragmocone. So these 3 parts were inside of the belemnite, and they actually had tentacles on the end. Now these tentacles actually had little hooks, so there's something that you would probably, that's like probably nightmare fuel right there for you. So that's the exception to the rule. I'm so glad you're enjoying this. All right, so now we're just zeroing in on the Coiloidea. So that is, we have our cephalopods with our nautiloids, our ammonoids, and then we're going to have our little Coiloidea. So I'm going to show you another cladogram of those, and I'm going to pop my picture off of here so you can kind of see a bit better. Alrighty. So here we go. Here's another cladogram. So we've been talking mostly about cephalopods being the earliest ancestors of what we see with the octopus. Now we have nautiloids, ammonoids. Here's those belemnites that we were talking about with the internal shell. Then that's the earliest form of the Coiloidea. Then it branches off into all of these fun things, all the way down to Octopoda. This is where our modern octopus kind of lies. They have a mammoth site there. That would be cool. So our Octopoda is our modern octopus. Now the 3 main clades within this cephalopoda cladogram, I've already talked about, the Ammonodea, that's an extinct and shelled clade. The Nautiloidea, with only 1 living shelled genus known as the nautilus. And the Coiloidea, that's our squids, cuttlefish, octopuses, the ram's horn squid, the paper nautilus, and all of the extinct belemnites. The ammonoids survived for about 300 million years in the Paleozoic and Mesozoic periods. Most had that planar or that flat coiled spiral external shell. So those are the ones that you were talking about earlier that some people like to sell. Those opalescent type of ammonoids are very pretty. So the thing is throughout their evolutionary history, ammonoids shared the seas with the nautiloids, but by the end of the Cretaceous period, the ammonoids were wiped out and left the nautiloid clade, known as the genus Nautilus. So the last few of those shelled cephalopods are the few species of nautilus that we see living today. So how cool is that? Yay, we finally have the chat up here now. Oh goodness. So now I kind of want to jump into, because there's so much information. I don't think you guys realize. I literally, and I know I was a little bit late, but it was like I was literally putting together the last of, the very last of all the stuff for the show right before I hit start streaming. So it was like, you know, and that's why I had my titles off on Periscope. I failed to go in and change the titles. So I was literally, I'd been up since about 6 this morning putting everything together. And so it's like, I was just like, oh, so please forgive the wrong title on Twitch and Periscope. Totally my fault. I did not go in and change it like I needed to. So some cool things that I found when I was digging through to put together all of this stuff. So the real question is, how exactly does the octopus evolve? Well, the best we have is looking at the modern octopus, comparing it to the fossil record, looking at other species that are similar, how those particular species are represented in the fossil record, and see what lines up, what connects. Is there anything that's similar? That's essentially what we do when we're trying to figure out where they fall on the tree of life. So, oh, you tweeted me out to Netflix. Thank you. I really should kind of find out, you know, who to talk to, who produces the science stuff on Netflix. That would be a good idea. So when we're looking at how the octopus evolves, we kind of have to keep this in mind. Evolution is based on natural selection. And so natural selection in a nutshell, and if you're unfamiliar with it, I do have a 3-minute video on YouTube. You can go there and check under bite-sized videos. I have about a 3 to 5 minute video explaining natural selection. I have very short videos that kind of get into the basics of it. But essentially what happens is triggers in the environment can shift genetic expression. Octopuses, octopodes, octopi, whatever plural you prefer, have inherently an unusual evolutionary characteristic that we do not see so readily in other animals. Something that we are learning about the octopus is this incredible ability of the octopus to alter its RNA. Usually what we see in the evidence of evolution, DNA is altered. DNA is your base code that's inside all of your nuclei of your cells. That's the main instructions. RNA comes from the DNA code, and that's what your ribosomes read to make proteins. So usually when we see evidence of evolution, the DNA is altered, and this affects the genetic expression. So we see the protein changing in that regard. Here's the thing. The octopus doesn't necessarily have its DNA changed, but it can edit the RNA. So why is this so important? This is kind of important. And it's really highly unusual. We don't see this in other animals. So what we need to do is talk a little bit about what protein synthesis is. So here's a little bit of a review of protein synthesis. So what happens is we have to kind of understand what RNA is. So in protein synthesis, your DNA is read by what we call this RNA polymerase. So this little enzyme reads your DNA and it goes, okay, I'm going to make this portable message. It's kind of like a recipe. So this RNA polymerase, this enzyme, is reading the cookbook and it's making a portable version of the recipe for a particular protein. Your ribosomes, when it's released into the cell, your ribosomes then latch on and they attach to this portable recipe, and therefore they put together the proteins. So RNA is the portable recipe that ribosomes read in order to make the proteins that we see in individual people. So when we're looking around at people, their hair color, their eye color, their skin color, how tall they are, all of this is an expression of that RNA being read inside your cells. So if we were to take, you know, the RNA of another particular organism and inject it into our cells, like our skin cells, if we wanted to put like the GFP RNA in our skin cells, we could then just, you know, that's that particular fluorescent gene that we see in jellyfish, then we could, like, you know, tag people and go play laser tag, and then they'd all be glowing in the frickin' black light. We'd be able to see them, and then they would lose because then, you know, we would have the edge. Well, that's the thing. The octopus doesn't actually have their genetic code in the DNA change. They're fixing and changing the actual RNA after it's been made. So their genetic code has very few mutations in it. They're changing the actual portable recipe. And one thing that they're noticing is that this happens with temperature changes. So this is actually pretty freaking cool. That's why this is important. Because most of the time, if we as organisms try to alter our RNA in our bodies, in our cells, things just go wrong. But it doesn't go wrong with the octopus. So it's really, really freaking cool that they're able to do this sort of thing. So let's talk a bit more about this awesomeness. And this is something that's fairly new. This is brand new science that just come out like last year. Now, most organisms who have their RNA altered tend to not do so well. Yet, the octopus can alter the RNA without changing their base DNA. This means they can modify their own protein expression as it's needed without initiating any mutations in their actual base DNA. They haven't changed so much in regard to their base genetic code, but the ability to alter their proteins through RNA has shown to be inherently valuable, especially when they're faced with rising sea temperatures and human interference. The octopus has the ability to learn. It has the ability to use tools. There's all kinds of incredible things that it's able to do. It's a master escape artist. It can get out of certain situations pretty easily. And so some scientists are beginning to think that perhaps since they've kind of shifted from being so subjected to DNA mutations, that this somehow has caused their brains to develop a lot better, since they're really kind of ancient. They're very ancient in regards to their DNA, since it hasn't changed so much. They've been able to develop this learning ability and pass that down and still be able to just alter their RNA as needed. They don't have to have permanent changes in order to adapt to their environment. They can adapt just like that, just by altering the RNA while keeping their base DNA intact. This isn't something that we see with other organisms, which makes them kind of cool, really awesome, and also kind of scary. So what are some of the cool things that the octopus has managed to do? All right, so researchers have found out that the veined octopus uses tools. It uses tools. So humans have been tossing their coconut shells into the ocean, and then the octopus is like, what's this thing? It picks it up and it uses it as a tool to help them build their shelter. So the octopus essentially digs out the coconut shells, empties the shells with jets of water, and then stacks them hollow side up to where, it's hollow side up. It stacks them up like that and then carries them over to the part of the ocean that they want to build their shelter, and then it builds their shelter with this. So that's a type of intelligence we don't see so readily with other species of cephalopods. It's something actually that's quite incredible. And so since coconuts aren't necessarily part of the natural environment for this particular veined octopus, it has learned to use it to help build its shelter. So human interference has actually kind of driven the octopus to show just how intelligent it is. Octopuses have 8 arms and I only have 2. How unlucky am I? I kind of want to be an octopus too. It's kind of cool, huh? So these are just some of the really incredibly interesting things. And I actually have a video for you guys in just a bit of an octopus that's learned how to take pictures of people. It even moves its arms out of the way and makes certain that the arms aren't in the shot. And so you're going to actually see here some pictures that were taken by an octopus. And I have a really cool video from the New Zealand Zoo. All right, so the octopus is not only an expert escape artist, but it can also take photographs of people. Scientists think that the RNA editing capabilities of the octopus has caused it to retain much of its DNA without an increase of mutations. And there is some that link to this ability of RNA editing and the intelligence of the octopus. So let's have a look at a video of the octopus in the New Zealand Zoo photographing people. I know, I was going to say tentacles instead of arms. You're right, Nelsie, but I caught myself. See, I'm not infallible. I make mistakes, but I'll own them. I always own my mistakes because we learn. It has arms, not tentacles. Shh. It's not a secret, actually, but, you know, I mess up sometimes. And that's okay. I actually have, like, typos sometimes on my slides. I need to just start doing that on purpose and kind of see who all can notice my typos on my slides. You know, everybody should notice my typo on the title on Twitch and Periscope. Yeah, that's a typo. Shouldn't be that, because, you know, silly me, I was like running and late and just like, oh my gosh, I got to get this together, you know, because I literally put everything together in the morning and just dive down. So if you have questions and I'm not able to answer them right away, fear not. I will send you links to further information. If you would like that information, I can give that to you. And all of my sources are listed at the end of this particular show. And I post all of my slides on my website, ScientistMel.com. So if you want to use my information, you can download, use it, dig a bit further, learn a bit more. And there's also other articles that talk a little bit more about this RNA editing. If you want to learn a bit more about it, you can go and dive down a bit further and kind of do your own little research and learn something cool. They don't have tentacles. They have arms. They have arms. They have arms. So if we got to like clap and talk about that, they do. They have arms. All right, so let's take a look at this really cool video of an octopus taking pictures of people at the zoo.
I went outside without permission to observe and photograph it.
Do you want to take my photo? Do you want to take my photograph? Do you want to take my photo? Do you want to take my photograph?
How freaking amazing is that? Oh my goodness. So there's an octopus that can take pictures of people and even knows to move its arms out of the way. And here's something that's really interesting about their arms, the little suckers. They are extremely sensitive. So they have a highly sensitive sense of touch. Now remember, they have neurons that go all the way through their arms. Neurons are brain cells. Okay, we have nerves. We have nerves in our fingers, in our hands, and in our arms. The octopus has actual brain cells that go through 2/3 of their brain cells actually go through their arms. So they're thinking with their arms. And they have about the same amount of neurons as a dog. And so they can be trained. They're intelligent. They can learn. They can do all kinds of interesting things. And so scientists attribute a lot of their intelligence to their ability to edit their own RNA to help them adapt. Arm brains are better. Can you imagine if your arms could think? I mean, just take a moment. Oh, I'm sorry, I have to do math with my fingers because my brain cells are in my fingers. That's just so weird. Is that just not the coolest thing ever? And also kind of weird? They are aliens, aren't they? They seem, you know, so they kind of feel like aliens, don't they? But that's the thing. Is it aliens? This isn't the History Channel, you know? But still, it's just kind of like they think with their arms. So I thought that was, and I've seen all the videos of the octopus working its way out of, you know, and putting itself into tiny boxes and getting out of a boat with a teeny tiny hole like that because they can smush themselves up and go through. Sounds like octopuses might be capable of evolving our brand of intelligence. The humans become extinct or not a competition, contrary to them being land-based. A stretch, I'm sure, but, well, you know, they can walk on land. They can walk in the water. They can change their protein expression just from the differences in temperature. They're able to use coconut shells that people have thrown in the water in order to build their houses. So, I mean, is it true that 2 of the arms are actually legs? I think they're all just arms, but they may use some of the arms as legs. People would ask me how to do something, and I'd say I couldn't tell them. I'd have to show them because my fingers knew how to do it, not me. There's something to be said about muscle memory. So when you're driving a car, you know, like horses always, if they go on the same trail all the time, they kind of go home. And so if you go to a particular place for a long period of time, you kind of zone out while you're driving. Your body just wants to take you there. I mean, well, you have muscle memory. So your muscles are used to doing a particular task. So there you go. So, so that's kind of one of the cool things about people. You know, we retain some muscle memory if our bodies have been doing a particular thing for a while. Sometimes we can do it without actually, you know, having, you know, the mindfulness of us performing the particular task. So, but the octopus has brain cells in its arms, and it's highly super sensitive touch. That would probably explain why it's able to open up jars on lids of jars. And, you know, it would what I think would be really cool. And we're seeing more and more evidence of them being able to learn things like the photography. You know, in that particular video that comes from the New Zealand Zoo, where they've trained an octopus to take pictures of people. I can't imagine how expensive that photograph would be. You know, hopefully they won't be like, would you like a picture taken by an octopus? That'll be $65. I really hope it's nothing like that. I hope they just kind of put it out there and, you know, you can get your picture taken by an octopus and just make it part of the learning experience without capitalizing on it so much. Hopefully that's a thing that they do. But this is, you know, I've really kind of enjoyed a lot of this. So let me show you all of my freaking sources. I have so many. So if I can get this slide over. Come on. All right, so I'm going to show you this giant list of stuff. There's so much information on this. You can go to, the site that I liked the best was on Berkeley, ucmp.berkeley.edu. If you want to learn a lot about cephalopod evolution, the differences between the nautiloids and the ammonoids, and where we're talking about the siphuncle, that sort of thing, that's where you can go. That is a very, very good site. It digs. It's easy to follow. It doesn't use a lot of the hard science. But they have lots of pictures, and you can check it out. Does the octopus get royalties? I don't know. Maybe they give them extra coconut shells for them to play with. Is the plural octopuses or octopi? I think because since it's a Greek word, people just kind of go, if you can't really say octopi, you might say octopuses. You could say octopodes. I think any of them, you can just go with what you want. I mean, I don't think there's an inherent rule. Somebody had mentioned on my teaser trailer for this episode, it's like octopi isn't, it's not Latin. The octopus word isn't Latin. In cephalopods, literally, it's a Greek word. It means head feet. So octopoides. So you can't really use Latin if it's Greek. And then, you know, we say octopus, so maybe the English version, octopuses. All of these different things, I think it's kind of just, it's up to the individual. I don't think if anybody sits there and goes, octopuses, octopodes, octopi, I think it's tomato, tomato at some point, because we have such an evolution of language. We kind of go with it. Can you call it squishy? If you want to. If you want to call it squishy, I think they're pretty cool. And the thing is, the camouflage trait to where they can blend in. Oh, the Smithsonian uses octopi. That's good enough for me. Fair enough. Their ability to blend into their environment and that sort of thing has a lot to do with their RNA editing, to where they can do it so quickly. So when they blend into their environment, they can edit their RNA right away in order to get that protein expression. So that's probably one of the coolest things that we've learned about. So we've talked about what they are. We've talked about what their ancestors are, their evolutionary ancestors. We talked about how they actually evolve. They haven't changed their DNA that much. So the mutations are very, very small. They edit their RNA, not so much their actual DNA. We don't see a lot of the mutations in these organisms. And so that's something that seems to be inherently unique to them, is the ability to edit their RNA. Any other organism that does that tends to not do so well. They don't survive so well. Why did it lose its shell? I didn't dig down into that. But there are articles associated with when and at what point they lost their shell because it didn't pay rent. Now, the earliest of the cephalopods we see have an internal shell. That was, let me find that slide for you. I'll show you what they look like. What anatomical features distinguish the initial split between the ancestors of the octopi and the ancestors of the squids? I am not certain. See, you guys are asking me all kinds of really cool questions that I don't have the answer to. I didn't realize you guys would be like, I want to know about squids. I'm like, I've focused mostly on the octopus. So let me go back to this slide for you. All right, so this one, here, I need to make myself smaller because I think you guys might have, there we go. So there we go. This is their earliest cephalopod ancestor. And so it has the internal shell that we were talking about. And so at some point, we went from the shell-covered early cephalopods to the internal shell cephalopods, and then we lost the shell altogether. The problem with understanding where they lost their shell and why they did that is because the fossil record, when the older you get, cartilage and soft squishy tissue doesn't fossilize so well. There's hardly any calcification. So we don't have a lot of good fossils in regard to cephalopods. So the belemnites, that's what we see as the earliest ancestor between the squid and the octopus. Okay, so that's kind of where we see their earliest shared ancestor before they split. Now the cladogram, let's see the cladogram here. All right, and so we have this cladogram, soft camo squishy. So here we go. Here's this cladogram, just going back through a little bit. All right, so we have the Coelodea. That's where we see primarily our cuttlefish, our squids, our octopuses. And so the squids and the octopuses, let's see, the octopodiforms, I would have to figure out which particular ones of these where the squids and stuff come from. Let's see. Yeah, so from here, the Coelodea, that's where, that's the main portion of the cephalopods where we have our squids and we have our octopods and that sort of thing. I think I would need Jackson Weed up in here because he would be all about that. But this is essentially where we have our splits between our squids and our octopuses. So here's our octopuses here. And we've had more splits that have brought us to the octopus than we have with, say squids and that other sort of thing. So this tree, I would say, is, based on genetics. Here we have our ammonoids are extinct. Our belemnites are extinct. Nautiloids are still around. So this is like one of the earliest forms of the cephalopods that we have, but we only have a few species of nautilus still living. But ammonoids are gone, belemnites are gone. That's the earliest ancestor for the squids and for the octopuses. And so when we go back through, this is where we see these breaks. So I would say genetics would play a role, because these particular species here, the Octopoda, Vampyromorpha, Teuthoidea, and Sepioidea, I'm probably saying that wrong, these are still living. And so we can differentiate between them in regards to genetics, behaviors, structures, anatomical structures, and that sort of thing in order to differentiate between them. So it is based on genetics. It's also based on structures. It's also based on behaviors. There's a lot of different reasons why scientists place organisms where they do in regards to the tree. So I'm not entirely certain which one of those particular families the squids and the cuttlefish are actually a part of, but I know which one is the octopus, because that was my focus on this. But that's where we kind of see the division and the splits in that regard. So yeah. All right. So if you guys have any other questions, and if you want to, please do not hesitate to hop over to my website, ScientistMel.com. I put all of these slides are up there. So if you're interested in if my talk has generated more questions than answers, that's good. That's the goal. That's the goal. Generate more questions. And you know what? I don't know everything, and I don't pretend to know everything, and that's okay. But those are good questions, but I will find answers for you. Just remind me. Just message me and say, hey, do you have a link for such and such? And I can pull it up for you. Or you can go to my website and check out all of my sources that I used to put together this, and dig down a bit further. Because a lot of these websites that I have, like the University of California for the Paleontology Museum, it's a wonderful, wonderful website that gets into a lot more detail about the cephalopods, the individual things, and the stuff that scientists are currently trying to work out on where they fall on the tree of life. Because there's still a lot we don't know, and there's a lot of varying perspectives on where they need to be placed. So this was actually very cool, and I found it kind of challenging because my background is primarily human biology, genetics, cancer research. It's just generalized, biochemistry. So trying to, whenever I get a topic that I'm not 100% like totally in on, it's always fun for me. Is my hair having a party? My hair is probably mostly arms, and there's probably neurons. So these are like my octopus arms here, right? Well, thank you guys for hopping on, Tony. I'm glad you're here. So if you do have further questions, hit me up on Twitter. I'm also on Google+. Ask me here in the comments. So I'm going to take a moment to thank all of my patrons. If you like what I do have a Patreon account. It starts at $1 a month. I have a new person joining me on my podcast soon. Her name is Ash. I've been talking about her a little bit on my Twitter. She and I are going to do an audio podcast. It's still an extension of my Hey Scientist Mel audio podcast. She's a scientist. She's joining in on me and is wanting to get involved in science communication. So this will be awesome. I'm excited. I used to be a science teacher. I have a Master's of Arts in Teaching. I can legally teach biology, chemistry, as well as physical science, and any overlapping if there's biochemistry. I've taught Biology 1, Biology 2, and I also used to tutor chemistry, and I taught chemistry at university. So let me thank my patrons: Tony, James, Lauren, Jen, Carl, Melanie, Patrick, Daniel, Paula, Tim, Carrie, Cersei, Keith, Duke, James, Andy, Zachary, Tony, Bo, Steven, Sarah, Graham, Dragnot, Godless Iowan, Jennifer, Corey, and Heavy. My pledges start at just $1 a month. They have their very own show every Sunday called Science Sunday School, where I talk about the latest and greatest in scientific discoveries. So if you want to get in on that, pledges start at just $1 a month. and they help me be able to get new tech like my new camera. I'm going to be working with green screen soon. I have a green screen kit. Woohoo! All this sort of stuff allows me to continue to do what I do. All of my videos are free, save the one show that I have just for my patrons. So if you can, buy me a coffee every month. That's helpful. Or you can donate to my PayPal if you just want to do it one time. So you can find me everywhere on the internet, ScientistMel, just everywhere. I'm also on Twitch now. If you're on Twitch, thanks for watching. Sorry about the title being The Evolution of Humans. It's not. It's Octopus today. That is my fault and my mistake because it's mostly just me that does this. So that has been the science of octopuses. See, even the date's wrong. So I'm going to fix that right now. We're going to fix it now. So I'll at least end on the proper date, which is the 7th of July, right? Coffee is harmful. It's needed for me, though. Oh, my goodness. I do not brain so well without the coffee. So we fixed the date. So, again, if you have questions, you know how to find me. Google+, Facebook.com, Twitter.com. I'm also on Twitch. And this has been awesome, guys. I'm so glad I got to do Saturday Science with you. I'm super, super glad that you come here on Saturday mornings and do this with me. Oh, I need to tell you, no show for the next 2 Saturday mornings. Because I'll be on vacation. I'll actually be on vacation, so there won't be a show for that. And I'm currently getting together my next Spirited Science talk on Katherine Johnson. I have amazing people that are going to collaborate with me on that and talking about all of her work in regards to her contributions to NASA and putting men on the moon. So, thank you for being here. Have a super awesome Saturday, and I'm sending squishy science hugs. Bye!